All right. Well, who called this meeting, by the way? We are here to talk about the USDA's Prospective Planning Report, March 1 stocks report. We'll try not to talk about the cocoa market because that's just too depressing, right? Got our report numbers today. Scott, you want to just summarize kind of what the USDA told us?
Yeah, I guess we'll start at the top here. Quarterly grain stocks. So I'm just going to kind of read down. We did send out on email this little form that I'm reading from, but for corn stocks, March 1, 24 corn stocks, 8,347,000,000. That is just a little bit below what the average trade guesses was, 8.427, well above last year's 7.396. So that's up 950 million bushels, about 12.9% higher, and kind of right in the middle of the trade guesses. On soybeans, 1.845 billion, just a little bit above the average trade guess, and again above last year's 1.687. That's a difference of about 158 million bushels, 9.4% increase. Lastly, wheat stocks. Wheat came in at 1.087 billion bushels. Again, above the average trade guesses of 1.044, and above last year's 941 million, a difference of 146 million higher, 15.5% higher.
So before we get to the part of the report, anything, Dr. Lapp, that you've gleaned out of the stocks numbers that stick out, tell us things ought to change?
Yeah, so we did not get a supply demand today in this report. We do not get one until the next month.
The 11th, I think.
The 11th of April. So that will be when they'll change the supply demands. We probably get a little bit bigger feed use in corn, and that'll take the stocks down 25 million for what that matters. And then
does that mean we're going to run out of corn?
No. Soybeans. We look at this report sometimes to say whether we overstated or understated the size of the soybean crop, the 2023 one. You can look at the residuals and say, oh, the crop actually is bigger or small. It didn't tell us anything. We're right in line, and that's probably something to look for. We might have a smaller wheat feed number from this, so kind of mixed, fractionally bullish on corn and maybe a little bit bearish on wheat, and just right in for the soybeans. So the bigger numbers, I suppose, were the acreage numbers.
Yeah, it seems like it. Seemed to have lost quite a few corn acres, but didn't pick them up in beans. So why don't you give a quick summary on that?
Yeah, so we're going to hit the high spots. We won't go through all of the, sorghum and barley and oats and all that fun stuff. Let's focus on the big three. Corn acres, 90.04 million corn acres. That is well below last year's 94.64. That's 4.6 million lower, 4.9% lower. And again, quite a bit below the average trade guesses of 91.77. On beans, 86.5. Kind of right in line with the guesses of 86.53. A good bit above last year's 83.6. That's 2.9 million above last year and 3.5% higher than last year. And then finally on wheat, the total wheat number came in at 47.5 million acres, just a skosh above the average trade guesses of 47.33. A good bit below last year's number, not a big surprise. Last year was 49.58, so we're just a little over 2 million acres below last year. Now, to split that out, the winter wheat acres, which we already got in January, were revised just a little bit lower. The January number was 34.43. Today's number was 34.13. So we lost about 300,000 there. The spring wheat number came in at 11.33. That was higher than last year, and that was a bit of a surprise. The average trade guess was 10.89. The 11.33 was actually above the highest trade guess. And we also got more Durham. So I got one right. I did get one right. Durham came in at 2.028, bigger than last year's 1.68, bigger than the average trade guess of 1.65. And honestly, we kind of need a little extra Durham. So that was really my gut.
We might have got the corn one right too. We were telling customers on the call this week, if there was a surprise, I thought
might be
less
lower.
corn, more beans. Well, we got half of that. We didn't get any more beans, but we lost corn.
Yeah. So without going through all of the, cotton, sorghum, barley, oats, and rice, the total grains and cotton number came in at 248.9. That is just shy of 5 million acres below last year's number of 253.8. So,
where did the acres go?
Where did we lose 4.9 million acres?
And all the eyes are on me to
That's right.
give the ultimate answer to that. It's hard to say. Maybe we'll get a revision up in June like we did last year. We gained almost 2 million acres. A combined 90 plus 86.5 on the corn is certainly, 186, if I do my Southern Illinois math right, 176.5 is below the 180, which is kind of the target you look for. So that came in light. Lower prices probably has a little bit of an impact. There's no weather event, no prevent plant in this, and I don't think they do anything on conservation that would tell you that that's where it went. It's a surprise, and it gives the funds and anybody who wants to be bullish something to hang their head on for the minute. So this officially at 11:01 today, we started the 2024 growing season, and we're off to the races, worrying about the 2-2 season where it's too hot, too cold, etc. I would
say what you're saying is we're almost out of time to have this be important, and we're going to go to the weather.
Oh, at 11:02, the weather became more important.
But you mentioned another good thing, Bill, that this is the farmer's intentions, right? We could see a change or another adjustment to these acres in June.
Yeah.
But that's when
up
we get
2 million or down 2 million.
Yeah.
Well, is that largely weather? I mean, we had a great planting cycle season last year weather-wise, and we found more acres. Coincidence?
No, I don't. I think it was probably a little bit of the weather that we got some extra acres in, although you really don't get it all captured by the end of June in that survey. Probably a little more farmers changed their mind to a little degree. I don't think the surveys got any better. But so you miss corn acres by 2 million acres, and the yield is 180. So that's 300, a little less than 360, maybe 350 million bushels of corn you lost out of that. If you have a 4 bushel swing in yields, that would be more than that change.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
So we focus on the acreage now because that's the data we have, but every year yields are more important, and the weather we have during the growing season is probably more important than actually the deviation we have year to year in acreage.
Yeah.
That's a great call out.
Good
That's
point.
a great call out. So when will we see if there is going to be an adjustment in the planted area? We have to wait all the way to the end of June?
Yes. We will not get any more data from the USDA. Every Monday we'll sit by our computer screens at 3 p.m. Central Time waiting for the planning progress. And if we're ahead of schedule, you kind of get the idea that you can get more areas planted, more area planted that you wouldn't otherwise because you don't run out of time. And then we'll have to see what the early growing season looks like. And then, but it's the one thing to me from this is when I think it's May 12th, when we get the first 24-25 USDA official S&D on May 12th, we're still going to see year-over-year increase in ending stocks from 23-24 to 24-25 for corn. That's pretty important. And I think the same can be said for soybeans and wheat too.
So it's really point, as it always is, as you say, right after this report comes out, it's really Mother Nature's kind of in the driver's seat again, which is after the last 3 years can be a little unnerving, but I have to keep reminding my customers and myself that, normal weather is the norm. It just kind of hasn't been for a few years. I mean,
Yeah.
we haven't had a horrible problem here in the US, but we've had a few marquee growing season train wrecks around the world. We had a 100-year drought in Argentina last year. We had, was it 2 or 3 years ago? We had the Canadian prairies didn't get much rain, and they had a mess of a crop.
Mhm.
Of course, I always got the war in the Ukraine. That's not Mother Nature, but we've had kind of 3 subpar years in a row. I mean, we haven't had horrible growing seasons, but we've had corn and bean yields were just below trend line for the last 3 years. So,
Yes, yeah, 2023 had, you would have thought with the weather we would have had, you'd had much lower yields than we did, and we still came up with a near record crop and good yields. So it still looks like a situation where we're going to have the angst and gyrations in the spring that we typically do, but if it plays according to Hoyle with these acres and the trend yield, you've got building stocks in all 3 markets.
I get asked, as you probably do all the time, when you have multiple years consecutively where you're below trend. Oh, it's the crop technology and the seed technology. Is it leveling off? Are yields leveling off? I've gotten asked that already here in recent months. And my response is always the same, and it always is based on 40 years of me making mistakes. I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've seen this movie before. And just about every time you become convinced that, well, maybe we're running out of that technology and we're going to see yields level off, Mother Nature says, hold my beer. We get a great growing season. We set a new record yield and off you go. I don't know if that's what we're due for this year. I don't think the meteorologist would say due matters. You flip a quarter and it's been heads 100 times. You flip it, you got the same 50-50 shot. But
Right. Normal yields, normal weather in 2024 would give us probably 5 more bushels per acre than we had this year. This year was not, this year being 2023 growing season was not anywhere near normal in my view. So to get normal weather would add to your yield this year.
Yep. Looking a little bit at the state by state data, one of the things I didn't get a whole lot of time because we do this call pretty quick after the report comes out. But, we lost corn acres in all the big states, the big 5, the I states, the 3 I states, Minnesota, Nebraska. The big loss, however, twice the number of acres lost as we did in Illinois, which was 350. Minnesota down 700,000 acres. That one seemed a little odd to me because if you remember last year, Minnesota they still had a ton of snow on the ground. Ground was cold. It was awful. And they hadn't gotten a lot of field work done early, unlike this year. And yet they still planted quite a few corn acres last year. And now we're going to be down when you have a year that, at least weather-wise, now I know they got some snow here recently, but a lot warmer. We got a lot more field work done last fall and this spring here, late winter with the great weather. Just surprised me that we had 700,000 fewer acres coming in Minnesota.
Right.
I didn't look to see how much beans were up.
They gained 150 on beans. They gained 300 on spring wheat. That's part of them.
Well, here's the other part. And I just wrote this down because it's not in the marquee numbers, but had one of my buddies who works for a Canadian crusher says that he immediately his eyes go to the canola line, right? Canola acres in the US are record large at just 2.37 million acres. Minnesota is one of those states that had an increase. I didn't write down what the increase was. Surprisingly, North Dakota, the biggest canola producing state in the US, was canola acres are going down 7%, but they're going up in Kansas, Minnesota, Montana, and Oklahoma. I guess we're going to 2 fields instead of 1 in Kansas this year.
Both farmers are going.
Both farmers are going.
Have drawn a strong bid, so they should be up. Durham, as you Scott said, is going to have a big, and lentils, field peas, and one of the other 19 crops that grow in North Dakota will show an increase because they've been strong markets this year. You know, it's, you can grind your brain pretty hard thinking about these because we had an open fall and we should have had more acres. You had all the private services that I would respect. We're talking about 93 million acres of corn.
Yep.
USDA at the Outlook Forum said 91.5. And so everything pointed toward at least that 91.5, I thought. So this is
A little surprising.
but it doesn't, without a yield problem, it doesn't dent the growing supply of corn.
Well, that is an excellent point. So the big corn bump we had today, and I look at the you know, we were up 14, 15 cents for a
At
bit.
one
I think
point.
we backed off just a little bit, but you wonder if some of that is got more to do with the fact that the spec went into this thing with a lot of chips bet in the short side.
Corn's up 15 right now.
Yeah.
The wheat's Chicago's up 12 on the front end. Kansas City up 5 to 6. Minneapolis wheat is actually down, as you might expect. And soybeans are off 3. So
Well,
kind of,
I guess kind of what you would expect. Again, I think 15 cents in corn probably has more to do with spec liquidation than really, oh my God, it needs to be 15 cents higher because we've lost all these acres.
Yeah. But it's virtually impossible to know which way the funds are leading coming into this report, how strong of a conviction they had or which way they were going.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes out and it has a bullish flavor to it, sometimes you know, you get a report like this and the numbers are bigger than you expect and you still see a market go up because you just don't know where that blind monster is positioned in the market.
Yeah. Well, from the Commitment of Traders report, though, you've also, with your data on that you've showed us, you share with us all the time, every week when we get the CFTC report of where the spec is. I think it was 3 weeks ago, the spec had a record large short position in corn. And one of the things that we've heard you point out is that not only is it record large, but they almost never have a short position of any size at this time of the year. So it's kind of a dangerous time of the year to have this many chips bet in the commodity casino, it seems like. So
yeah, I agree. And you know, we treat the funds as all one and all moving together, and they're all individually. And you know, if you're a fund trader and you see a report like this and you want to be even by July 1st, you don't want to be the last one to leave the market. You want to be the first to leave, to buy back his position, and that runs the market up. And you know, it seems like your idea that the funds had a great deal of play in this makes sense to me.
yeah, because like I said, it's hard to get, you know, to your point with yields. We do have weather risk in front of us, but you have a normal crop yield wise, we still have beyond plenty corn. U.S. and the world, it looks like. So
Yes.
well, all right. I guess that's probably about it. Does anybody have any parting thoughts here before we shut off the recording? And
I think we go back to what we were talking about earlier. At 11:01 today, you know, it was all about the acres, and the planting season had begun. And at 11:02, you know, we're now
weather.
We're worried about weather.
Yep.
Let's go. The farmers are fueled up and ready to roll, and they will be rolling in Southern Illinois on Monday.
Yeah, well, to your point, this is a Thursday ahead of a 3-day weekend, and on Monday at 3 p.m. Central Time, we will get our first crop. Well, we won't get crop conditions, but we'll get our planting progress numbers from the USDA, and that now becomes the focus.
Well, don't forget, we do get conditions. I know you don't care about wheat.
Well, you're right. We do get conditions on wheat. That's right. That will be a big thing.
Yeah,
that will be a big thing. So, all right. Well, that's what we've got for you today. Have a great 3-day weekend and a very happy Easter. And as always, be careful out there.